leadership of a number of foundations are represented here. The leadership and management of the University of Limpopo, the family of Comrade Phokanoka, ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome. We are now going to rise and listen to the Internationale, followed by the national anthem of our country. Thank you very much. Each time I come to this university, to this campus, I feel like I'm home. Anyway, my name is Saul Mulubi. This university has made me what I have become. I arrived here in 1984 as a student, and this year, this venue is so special to me because I got my politicization right in this hall. I attended a student rally in this hall, and I then immediately joined the Azanian Student Organization, which was an affiliate of the progressive movement in the country, as led by the United Democratic Front during those years. And it was in this very hall that I was given the opportunity to read one of my poems during a student rally. And all those years I was here, up until this campus was invaded by the security forces, who then established camps here on campus. I always recited my poetry in student rallies. So I am a poet. I've published a book, and I've published some poems in a number of poetry anthologies. And I am a marketer by profession. I'm a Pan-Africanist brand architect. So today I'm not going to talk really politics. We have people lined up in our program who are going to talk about politics. I am going to talk about Lawrence Phokanoka, the brand. Because when I look at you, I see a brand. When I look at this building, I see a brand. When I look at this university, I see a brand. When I look at the cars we came driving in, I saw brands. When I think of Limpopo, I'm thinking of a brand. When I'm thinking of South Africa, it's a brand. Africa is a brand. So I'm not going to give a branding lecture, but throughout this program, I'll be reciting one stanza from this epic poem I've written dedicated to Lawrence Phokanoka. And by the way, I'm also a jazz presenter on radio. Our station is 101.9 High FM. So as you drive home after this event, please tune in on 101.9 FM. Those who are streaming, you can stream live from www.chaifm.com. This very poem I'll be reading throughout the programming. I will be reciting it on air, and the show for this evening from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock will be dedicated to celebrating the legacy of Lawrence Phokanoka. It is no ordinary jazz program because we look at the agency of jazz. We don't just play music, but we also talk about the politics behind jazz music, because jazz, as part of our culture, has always been a potent weapon for our national liberation struggle. So before I call the next speaker, here's my first stanza. Every generation inherits a name, a few generations inherit a brand. A brand is not a logo, it is not a color. It is not a slogan etched upon polished paper. A true brand is forged where values meet sacrifice, where purpose outlives personality, where reputation survives the passage of time. Such was the brand called Lawrence Phokanoka. Let me say, I first met Lawrence Phokanoka immediately after he was released from Robben Island. At the time, I was working for an NGO called Learn and Teach Publications. We were a publishing company, and I think our most famous product was Learn and Teach magazine. We were also publishing a number of booklets, mainly for COSATU and its affiliates. Our area of specialization was producing material in English accessible to people with low levels of English literacy. And I was also heading what we call the Political Education Committee within Learn and Teach. And after POX was released, I then invited him to one of our weekly seminars. The seminars were taking only 2 hours. It was 2 hours per week. POX came on Monday. He presented for 2 hours, and everybody who was attending said no, he had to come the next day. A 2-hour lecture ended up being a 5-day, 10-hour lecture. And we just couldn't believe the brilliance, the wisdom that came out of his mouth. But for me as a marketer, as I indicated, perhaps I should define what a brand is. A brand is a promise you make and a promise you keep. If you look at any business, already in your mind, you know what promise they've made to you. PEP, you are looking at cheap, but with the reconfiguration of their brand, they've transformed the construct of cheap into affordability. If you think Woolies, the promise they made is that they will give you fresh, organic products. And when, after buying from all these institutions, you accept that they will keep their promise. McDonald's, they promise convenience. They used to say that if you were to stand on a queue after ordering for more than five minutes, they were to compensate you. But I know the standard has fallen down a bit of late in the country. So POX, up until today, is the one leader that I know he has kept his promise. As an activist, as a freedom fighter, post-1994, he declined nomination to the legislature and to parliament. And he then opted to be a civil servant. And he was uncomfortable about the salary government wanted to pay him because he was saying, our people are not getting this much money. How do you give me so much money for me to build my country? He kept his promise. That's why I celebrate him as a brand. Now I'm going into our program, and I'm going to ask the representative of the university to welcome us all on behalf of Dr. Jeffrey Mabelebele, who is the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Limpopo. Victor Komoesana, Head of Marketing and Communications here at the university, will represent the Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Comrade Saul. I know you as Comrade Saul. I was free for 9 months. That's the poem he's talking about. I was free for 9 months, right in this hall. Let me stand on established protocol for the sake of time and just say on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Jeffrey Mabelebele, and I'm sure the family saw him. He is new at the university here. Dr. Zigala, this university is a high intensity, busy traffic intersection. Everything happens here, and things haven't changed since it was founded in 1959. See, if you share a birth year with Peter Mugabe, you are looking for trouble. I'm going to share a joke I heard in Zimbabwe in just explaining the importance of the Lawrence Phokanoka legacy and the legacy of the many other stalwarts, one of them seated on this podium right now, Bra George. When we say Bra George, people think we don't respect him. No. In the 80s, that's how we called him. And we have Bra Arnold Msimeki, who is also a very senior citizen of the country, but we call him Bra Arnold. It's just the way we internalize certain habits and certain legacies. A young man, let's call him Madimeja, grows up, we can't say Zimbabwe, in South Africa. A young man called Madimeja grows up in, let's just say, Ramaisela. And he's from a poor family. And when he goes to school, he shows brilliance in the academic field that the teacher decides we can't let this talent go to waste. So he rallies, or she rallies, probably she. Primary school teachers often were. That's why we call them mistress. Rallies the community, and the community comes through, the local chief comes through, the priest comes through, the soccer team. Everybody comes and they collect money because the school principal tells them this talent must be developed. And he has an opportunity to go and study in Cape Town. And if he passes there, matric, he will go and study at Harvard. So they collect the money, Madimeja goes and he flies even higher in Cape Town, he passes his matric. They collect more money, they send him to an international university. Then he passes, he becomes a very successful businessman. But even as he's studying, years go by, 5 years go by, 10 years go by. And the mother, who's now an elderly woman, is still just living in the same old mud house. Now the chief starts wondering, Gokue, what's wrong with your son? He passed, we are told he's a successful man. He's a successful businessman. He's a Wall Street analyst. How come you're still living in the mud house? The grandmother says, maybe ngwanaka ba moloile. Maybe my son has been bewitched. The chief says, how? She says, I don't know. I mean, since he went, he doesn't write, but he doesn't send anything. You say, no, he doesn't send it. He doesn't write letters. No, he sometimes writes. And the stupid boy, he just keeps sending me pictures of white men. They say, pictures of white men. He says, yeah. Say, may we see these pictures? Maybe we really can help this young boy. Maybe he's really bewitched. What is an African boy from Ramaisela doing? Sending his grandmother, his mother, pictures of white men. Then the woman goes into the room, he opens the kist. You know the kist? Yeah, if you don't know a kist, I start doubting your age. We must check your ID. Exactly. Thank you, Comrade Sichako. He opens the kist and they find stacks and stacks of US dollars. Now, what's my point? When Comrade Saul started here, he talked about the wealth that is Lawrence Phokanoka. We have his family here. We have people who knew him, people who attended his political education, people who were with him on Robben Island maybe, or in prison wherever he was. But we are poorer for it, not richer. Because we look at him as just another old story, just another old man. You know, Dr. Zigalal, when I hear people talk about Nelson Mandela having been a sellout, I realize what they mean by talk is cheap, or by the emptiest tin making the loudest noise. The point I'm trying to make is we have so much wealth in this province. We have so much wealth at this university. We have so much wealth in this hall, this stage. I'm sure you read newspapers and you hear about a man called Matthews Sissoko, the IDEC man, IPID man. See these stakes of Matthews played badminton here. The reason you have this rod is because this is a badminton court. I'm sure many young people who go to this university don't know the history. So if we started paging the history of this university, of this province, we will end up with a kist the size of this house that is full of pictures of white men that can buy anything anywhere in the world. Even with the BRICS currency, dollars will still take you far. I suppose what I'm saying is, as the university, we are now becoming conscious of the wealth of this province. And to demonstrate what I'm saying is, there is a new research chair. Dr. Slapel will understand that a research chair is like coalescing and condensing a lot of resources around an agenda. And that agenda, Dr. Zigalal, is called Liberation, Heritage, and Politics. And the reason I'm mentioning that is, if nothing else, next year when we host the lecture, the annual Phokanoka lecture, because the Vice Chancellor has committed that it shall be hosted, it will not be one event that is trying to find its place in New Cinema Hall in front of empty seats. The young people of this university would have understood that the pictures of white men in the kist are actually wealth, and they'll be filling this, and we will need a much, much bigger hall to accommodate. So I'm commending the foundation. I'm commending the supporters, the patrons, the sponsors, because the university now has a home for the heritage that is the story of Lawrence Phokanoka, the story of Peter Nchabeleng, the story of Peter Mokaba. Everybody, George Mashamba, Joyce Mashamba, every story that goes to this university since 1959 and before. It is when you organize the knowledge that you have into a form that can be assimilated by the world of academia that you become much more respected, that we have a higher citation index on papers that were written about this province of ours, about people like Lawrence Phokanoka. In closing, let me just say this. I'm hoping that we will unite around a cause like the celebration and restoration of the legacy of people like Comrade Pokes. I hope that we will organize ourselves for more effectiveness. I was chastising the SASCO branch here. And I was asking them, if your ancestor is being celebrated, how come your comrades are sleeping, hungover from what they did last night? But we can't blame them because we keep telling them there are pictures of white men in your bedroom. We don't tell them that there is wealth in who you are. They consider themselves, if you said, let's go to Johannesburg, they would have woken up at 3. Because they don't believe that anything worth celebrating can come from this province. Even when they are students at the university, they have not been awakened to that fact. So when we unite around the cause, when we organize ourselves, and when we reawaken the values that made us who we are, because I became the person that I am. I came here at 16, Comrades Cham, 16 years of age. And in 1988, I stood on this platform and campaigned to be on the SRC with a guy named Ernest Kosa, with a guy called A.B. Tlavane, and many people who went on to do wonderful things. We stood on this platform here. We spoke to a hall and we said we want to lead. We didn't even know what we wanted to lead because we were occupied by the SADF. Even as we were campaigning, they were standing there listening to us. So I'm saying if we overcame all that, for us to just leave it and hope that somebody somewhere will find it out, when we are the owners, when we are the curators, when we are the carriers of this history, we are doing much more than criminality. We are committing treason that should never be forgiven. So I'm committing on behalf of the Vice Chancellor that the university will house and curate all these stories. Comrade Sichaba, the books you have written, under the umbrella called the Liberation Heritage and Politics Research Chair. It's new. It was introduced less than 2 months ago. So it has about 5 years to go, which means by the time we do edition number 8, we will be a lot more organized, we'll be a lot more structured, and there'll be a lot more people who know about this. As for me, I'm here, I'm part of this, and I'm very thankful. Welcome to the University of Limpopo.
A great thank you to the university. I'm now going to call Comrade Dr. Kapula to come and acknowledge guests.
Thanks, Comrade Program Director. Indeed, as members of the board of the foundation, every year we learn lessons. That we have taken note of what we have actually promised. For sure, our chairperson will summarize that. My role is just to let you know who is here. By the way, some actually have just sent some messages that they are still on the way, and some have fallen victims of the ongoing road construction towards the hospital is quite not user friendly. Let's acknowledge the family of Uncle Pokes, Uncle Phokanoka. And by the way, I also need to declare that I'm in that family. Uncle Pokes is real my uncle, not by, the title we usually say. And then spiritually, if you believe in traditional, saying, it means Uncle Pokes is amongst us, is watching and looking and listening to all what we will be saying. The family is always being led by Uncle and Bonifacius Phokanoka and Lidi Khadi. As you can see, Gaspedi, Sanjo Fellow, o fara fara ki di Khadi, or squat teka teka. We are here with core family members. If I'm not going to piecemeal try and actually name them by names, but maybe let me just request those who are really upfront here because they are representatives, they've been sent by the family to just stand up so that you can, recognize them if you didn't know them. Uncle BM. And, Lidi Khadi gabana ema a ke sure a ke no re nna pe re no ema ka moka re bone go le bone gore the family is really represented. If you can't stand up, you can just raise your hand. Thanks for being around. Obviously, the host, they've already welcomed us. And Tate Moesana and the university leadership, we really appreciate hosting us in here. It wasn't easy, by the way. Those who were here last year or the other year, maybe you were in a cozy place where now you may even end up falling asleep. The area is under construction. That's where we are all seated here, but it's fine. I see youth is already just getting in, as I was saying. Some are calling, some are sending messages. When I was seated there, they wanted to know whether we have started, and because they had gone to go and try and call other colleagues. So we recognize the leadership of students in the campus. Very, very important for them to be here. Indeed, this hall should be filled by them. But we move on. This occasion also is being, supported by Department of Sports Arts and Culture. Ngwatu Maila, I requested him to just actually let us know who's leading the department. Indeed, it's very, very important, and we have received formal apologies from both the Honorable MEC and the HOD. But I take it that whoever is here, or those who are here, they are also being led. Our humble Dr. Snugis Kalala, I won't talk about you. I'm not qualifying to introduce you. For sure, somebody will come and tell us about your being here. But as the foundation, indeed, we appreciate your presence. We do also have amongst ourselves veterans provincially and nationally. Obviously, that's where Dr. Zgalala is. And Bra George, my age allows me to call you Bra George. And but now, because of general things out there, even your grandkids will continue calling you Bra George. And indeed, and thank you always for being around with us. And then I want to tell you, to tell the people what I said to you in the morning when we were having some tea, that Bra George, you look smart. And then he didn't just want to take that. Very rare where now you'll find Bra George in a tie. We do have amongst ourselves leaders of invited political parties. I haven't as yet received, the names and the like, and I suppose when they are being called on podium, the names shall be read and you'll know who's representing the organizations which are already on the program. That is COSATU, Communist Party in the province, ANC, and then George is representing a grouping called Greenings. I think there might be other leaders amongst ourselves here who could have just walked in. And again, when we do have two types of registrations there, the typical one where now the BBT is born before technology, having to put your name there, and then there are those who just go with their phones there, and if you happen to have actually done that and maybe I don't have your name here, I'll keep on sneaking and say now, let's acknowledge so and so. Lastly, just to say, yes, we do have amongst ourselves our board members. And then we have received apologies. Our chairperson who actually will let us know who's not here, who's here. But, the board is here to come and take notes and make sure that we grow. Program director, let me rest my case up to here. And then, like as I'm saying, unless if there is somebody who's not on the program happens to sneak in, I'll send the name to you and request you to acknowledge that name. And welcome to this, be a very, very important gathering to us. We can't say there are more empty chairs when we have got many people who are on these gadgets. And lastly, just to say, we are live. So that may be also one of the reasons why maybe the youth is not here. They are sitting somewhere, they are watching and listening to us. So one of the disadvantages, chairperson, of live streaming, many times it brings something like this, but I don't want to talk more about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hapula. But also, comrades, do remember that yesterday in the province, there were two major political rallies in Bembe district, and many comrades from the province are in that region of the province. They could be on their way.
I'm terribly sorry. I had to come back because we have got some visitors from Swaziland. Pudemo, as an organization, is being represented in here. The leadership is here with youth formations. I'm going to request him and his people with whom he's traveling just to wave and greet us. I've come back mainly because of one reason. Originally, I'm a Swati. This Hapola is supposed to be in Gamboni. And I learned that when I had gone to Swaziland and my son had seen a wife in Swaziland. So we are reconnected even today now here. Program director, if we could just allow the Swazi people to stand up, let make sure that we really welcome them with that way.
Brand Phokanoka was conceived long before the marketplace recognized its worth. Its foundations were laid among the ancient hills of Sikukuni land, where granite taught resilience, where rivers taught humility, where African skies reminded every child that greatness begins with belonging. There in Rapahla, the first chapter of an enduring reputation was written, not in ink, but in character, not in privilege, but by principle. For every enduring brand begins long before the world discovers it. It begins with values. Now, the original program said every message of support will be given 5 minutes. I know we are running against time, but I'm going to be a bit generous to say I'm giving you extra 2 minutes. And I'm giving you the extra 2 minutes because I'm not going to come back until we get to greetings. So we are going to have a representative of the ANC Veterans League in the provincial executive, Comrade Pirwani Pala. After him, immediately we are going to have a representative of the MK Liberation Veterans League. It's the Limpopo Interim Committee representative to be Comrade Jacob Rapulu. I haven't seen him, but if he's not here, maybe someone from that organization will come in. We'll have Comrade Soli Pitwe from Kosatu. Then we'll have the SACP represented by Comrade Dr. Alex Mashilo. Then we'll have the ANC represented by an NEC member. I think the person asked to represent the NEC will also come in. So please, comrades, just come in that order, and I'll only come back to stage after you have all given your messages of support. I've asked the comrades to summarize the messages, but the full written messages will be published in full on the website of the Phokanoka Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Let me stand on the protocol established because my message is too long. Members of Phokanoka family, Dr. Stungisi Galala, leaders of the African National Congress, the leadership of the ANC present, Veterans League, the provincial secretary of the Veterans League here, Communist Chaba, the vice chancellor, and the entire leadership of the University of Limpopo, members of the academic community, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a privilege to participate in this distinguished annual lecture established in honor of Comrade Lawrence Phokanoka, whose life and contribution form part of the broader historical narrative of South African liberation struggle. Universities occupy a unique position within the democratic societies. They are not only centers for teaching and research, but are custodians of knowledge, critical inquiry, and historical evidence. They preserve the intellectual foundation upon which societies understand themselves, interrogate their past, and imagine the future. For this reason, today let's move beyond commemorating an individual. Let's examine the important scholarly and national question. How should democratic societies preserve historical truth, particularly the histories of those who sacrificed, who sacrificed made democracy itself possible? This question has acquired increasing significance as South Africa commemorates 3 decades since the adoption of our democratic constitution, 5 decades since the historic events of 1976 youth uprising, and 70 years since the 1956 Women's March. As time passes, memory inevitably becomes more fragile. Eyewitness become a fever. Primary sources of primary source of transition, oral histories are lost. Complex historical moments become simplified into events, while many important contributors gradually disappear from the public consciousness. The challenge before us, therefore, is not a simple one of remembrance. It is one of historical preservation. Historical preservation is fundamentally concerned with evidence, documentation, interpretation, and intellectual integrity. It requires that society continually examine historical records, preserve archives, collect oral testimony, and encourage rigorous scholarships that reflect diversity and complexity on lived experiences. South African liberation struggle was never the achievement of a single generation or a handful of prominent individuals. It was a national struggle sustained over many decades by workers, students, traditional leaders, religious communities, women, youth activists, political prisoners, communities in exile, international solidarity movements, and members of Umkhonto Wesizwe operating both within South Africa and beyond our borders. Among these were members of the Literacy Detachment, whose military engagement in the then Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, formed an important chapter in the armed struggle against apartheid. Their contribution represents an essential part of South Africa's liberation history. Yet, like many liberation histories throughout the world, their experiences remain insufficiently documented within the mainstream public discourse. This observation should not be understood as a criticism. It should present an opportunity. It challenges universities, historians, archivists, museums, civil society organizations, and the youth to broaden the historical record and ensure that the liberation history reflects the full diversity of those who contributed to the democratic South Africa. Historical memory should never become selective, nor should it become political convenient. The integrity of history depends upon our willingness to document both well-known and lesser-known narratives with equal commitment to factual accuracy. Ladies and gentlemen, and scholars and comrades, South Africa's constitution is often described as one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. That description is well deserved. However, the constitution do not emerge in historical isolation. They are products of political struggles, negotiations, sacrifices, and social transformation. Every constitutional democracy carries within it the accumulated experiences of those who challenged injustice before the constitutional practitioner existed. The rights that South Africans enjoy today, including the equality before the law, freedom of expression, freedom of association, universal suffrage, access to education, and human dignity, did not emerge spontaneously in 1994 or within the adoption of the Constitution in 1996. They emerged from decades of sustained resistance against institutional injustices. Understanding this historical relationship between liberation struggle and constitutional democracy is essential for civil education. Democracy cannot be sustained through legal institutions. It also requires historical consciousness. Citizens who understand the origin of the democracy are generally better equipped to defend it against any erosion. This responsibility now belongs particularly to young South Africans. Today's students represent the first generation born almost entirely within the constitutional democracy. Many have no direct memory of apartheid, and this is entirely natural. However, the absence of lived experiences increases the importance of historical education. As I said, I think this is long. I'll just touch on the the Lawrence Phokanoka annual lecture is more than an academic lecture and a commemorative event. It contributes to to an ongoing national conversation about memory, justice, citizenship, and democratic responsibility. It reminds us that preserving history is not solely the responsibility of academics or historians. It's a collective national obligation shared by universities, archives, schools, communities, public institutions, and young people themselves. Let me just say, may the legacy of Comrade Lawrence Phokanoka continue to inspire critical scholarship, ethical leadership, and active citizenship. May this university continue to serve as a center of rigorous inquiry and historical preservation. And may South Africa remain committed to protecting both the truth of the past and the promise of the constitutional future. I thank you.
This hall is so silent, you know. It's like we are at a funeral. Amandla! 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 Long live the revolutionary spirit of Comrade Lawrence Madimecha Phokanoka. Long live! Amandla! Comrades, we have come here to celebrate a serious contribution to our struggle for liberation and social emancipation. We should not be seated like we are at a funeral. Amandla! I will make noise. Amandla! 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 Thank you very much, Program Director. Vice Chancellor in absentia, we met him this morning and he invited us to visit him, Comrade Joyce. The Lawrence Phokanoka Foundation board members, the Lawrence Madimeja Phokanoka family, veteran of our struggle for liberation and social emancipation, member of the SACP Central Committee in the category of veterans, Comrade George Mashamba. Comrade Joyce, you also serve as the National Treasurer of the SACP, and to all the leaders of the party present here today, greetings. Dr. Snugizi Galala, President of the ANC Veterans League, and other leaders and members of the ANC present here today. I was supervised by Professor Edward Webster at the University of the Witwatersrand. So he did his master's degree in philosophy, economics, and politics. And one thing he taught me was I always have to read about people even when I know stories about them. So I was reading about you as one of the participants in the program as part of my preparations here and how you were appointed at the SABC, criticisms that were leveled and comparisons in education. I really respect the education you received abroad. Congratulations to you. It was not easy. Leaders of COSATU and members of SANCO, representatives of government, the Limpopo Provincial Department of Sport, Art and Culture. I saw the Director General, Napen Chabeleng here. Greetings to you. Greetings, Dr. Slapelo. I worked with both of you. And greetings to other colleagues present here, including those who are managing the attendance register as part of accountability. Students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the SACP conveys its revolutionary greetings to the Lawrence Phokanoka Foundation on the occasion of the third annual lecture held under the theme, Pursuing Our National Interests in a Volatile and Complex Geopolitical Environment. I will touch just one point regarding this. Today, we do not merely remember a man, we celebrate a generation that carried the hopes of an oppressed people through the darkest years of colonialism, apartheid, and the exploitative capitalist system. I must emphasize that, particularly coming from the Communist Party. This system violently was imposed on our land by European colonialists who used colonialism and apartheid to institutionalize racial, gender, and spatial discrimination, to organize, articulate, and sustain economic exploitation, secure accumulation of society's wealth, and deny the oppressed majority their humanity, dignity, and land, which was expropriated without compensation. And in most parts of the Republic of South Africa, that land has not yet been restored to the communities from whom it was dispossessed from the mid-1600s to the day we removed the apartheid regime from power. Lawrence Madimeja Phokanoka belonged to that remarkable generation of revolutionaries who understood that the way forward lay in the national democratic revolution and its inseparability to the advance to socialism. The concept of the National Democratic Revolution comes from the Communist International in a commission that was held in 1920. It was refined in 1960 by the meeting of the Communist and Workers' parties in Moscow, Russia. 2 years later, the Communist Party articulated it within the framework of the South African Revolution, and 7 years later, in 1969, the African National Congress adopted it, along with the concept of colonialism of special type, characterizing South Africa as a colony in which the colonial oppressors lived in the same territory, although this territory was subdivided along with the colonized. The Lawrence Phokanoka Foundation rightly seeks to preserve the legacy of Comrade Lawrence Phokanoka, affectionately known as Comrade Pokes, by promoting ethical leadership, intellectual development, research, education, with particular emphasis on mathematics and science, inspired by his own educational journey and nation building. While still on the question of education, it is worth recalling that Marxists value the great importance of mathematics and natural sciences, a commitment that Lawrence Phokanoka himself exemplified. For example, Karl Marx's own intellectual curiosity extended well beyond political economy and the study of other aspects of society broadly. His mathematical manuscripts, I have met a few who have gone through it. It is 567 pages. The first part begins with differential calculus. I understand this because I studied my mathematics in engineering, along with electrotechnology, electrotechnics, engineering, science, digital electronics, and industrial electronics. So I took keen interest in the mathematical manuscripts of Karl Marx, and I understood the path that Lawrence Phokanoka did when he went to the University of Health here, or Fort Hare, to do mathematics and science. And I understand why this foundation has prioritized that. We cannot overestimate the importance of maths and science and related to both engineering, technology, domestic innovation, research and development. Program director, things have changed. If you look at what is happening in Iran, war is fought through technology. And this war being fought through technology is fought under conditions where the targeted states face sanctions so that they cannot import anything from other states and so that they cannot export anything, including their oil. Without domestic mathematics, science, engineering, technology, innovation, research, and development, there is no way that Iran could have stood the test of time in this war. And when we make these reflections, we must look at what is happening in our own country and ask, how far are we? Can we stand the test of time if we were to face what Iran is facing today? It is the foundation such as the Lawrence Madimeja Phokanoka Foundation that will help us move. Every year we celebrate matric results, but when you look at the number of learners who did mathematics, science, technology, and engineering, they are very few. Our country is deindustrializing, meaning that we are experiencing firm closures, retrenchments, and a decline in the contribution of manufacturing to national output, being gross domestic product as well as employment. When you hear talks about technology in our country, it is mostly from the point of view of consumption rather than from the point of view of invention, innovation, research, development, and production of technology. Almost every cell phone, every computer, every microphone, every equipment of technology and software and artificial intelligence we talk about every single day is an import in this country. There is no way we are going to build a prosperous South Africa if we keep on this particular path. In conclusion, Program Director, there are two questions that I would like to leave for our veterans to guide us. Because we talk about the lives and times of Lawrence Madimeja Phokanoka. There is no way we cannot touch his movement when we are talking about him. South Africa's democratic breakthrough in 1994 was not the achievement of one organization acting alone. It was the collective victory of our alliance, built through decades of shared sacrifice by the Communist Party, the ANC, the progressive trade union movement, and the countless formations of the broader democratic movement supported by the overwhelming majority of our people. It is important, therefore, to take this as a message to heart. In doing so, one should appreciate that since 1994, not a single organization, not even the African National Congress, has ever won elections nationally in this country, campaigning and voting alone. The electoral victories we have ever registered from 1994 until today were won by all of us working together and voting together. The reason why I am emphasizing this about the movement of Lawrence Phokanoka is that this is an invitation to our veterans to analyze this situation and the way it is developing in order to guide the new generations about where they see our country and the movement heading to. History therefore teaches us that unity has been our greatest strength, but our unity has never meant loss of organizational independence and rights, or dissolution into a single unitary organization. It is from this perspective that our veterans should reflect carefully on the present realities to guide new generations. For example, does unity not require, or must it exclude mutual support, reciprocity, and consistency? If I support you, why cannot you support me in return? If we are to be united. To appreciate this question, it may be helpful to draw on one of the elementary principles of mathematics, taking our cue from revolutionaries such as Comrade Lawrence Phokanoka in problem solving. It teaches us that what is done on the one side of an equation must also be done on the other if one is to arrive at a correct solution. The faith-based societies say, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. If you receive others' support, you must be prepared in return to support them, in order for your unity of purpose to stand the test of time. I'm emphasizing this principle and leaving it to the veterans. And in conclusion, as Africans, we have long understood this truth through the wisdom of our people. Ungamulale ngelinye ilanga uzomdinga. Do not destroy the one beside you, for tomorrow you may need them. This proverb speaks directly to our movement today. Revolutionary organizations do not grow stronger by diminishing one another, by paging one another, because this one is exercising the rights we fought for in the Freedom Charter in that particular alliance organization, while we are prepared to work with adversary organizations who have received some level of support for exercising the same rights. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm just keeping you busy as he's talking to the stage. Yeah, he's marching to the stage indeed.
Amanda, Matla, long live the young spirit of Comrade Pokes, long live. Long live the Tripartite Alliance, long live. Matla, comrades, compatriots, let me take this opportunity to apologize for not coming early, but it was due to unforeseen circumstances. We rely much on our dependents. So if the provider doesn't come, you hike to the venue. So this is what we did. These are the circumstances of nowadays. The management of the university Phokanoka family, the members of the South African Communist Party, where Comrade Phokanoka belonged, Veterans League, the foundation, and protocol observed. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of our combatants, and we know very well, Comrade Pokes was one of the pioneers of the armed struggle in the 60s. He fought side by side with other combatants for the liberation we got today. Today we gather not only to remember a remarkable revolutionary, but to celebrate the enduring legacy of Comrade Major Lawrence Phokanoka, commonly known as Pokes, a son of Skukuniland, whose life embodied courage, discipline, humility, intellectual excellence, and unwavering commitment to the liberation of South Africa. Born on the 10th June 1938 in Rapahla, Skukuniland, Comrade Phokanoka distinguished himself academically from an early age. His pursuit of knowledge led him to the University of Fort Hare, where his political consciousness deepened, and he joined the South African Communist Party in 1959 and the African National Congress in 1960. He came to understand that education without justice could never liberate the oppressed, and he dedicated his life to the struggle for freedom. When the apartheid regime closed every peaceful avenue for change, Comrade Phokanoka answered the call to join Umkhonto weSizwe, where he received military training and later served with distinction as Deputy Commissar of Lituli Detachment. Alongside Commander Chris Hani during his historic Wanki and Spolilo campaigns, his leadership was not only military, it was deeply ideological. He inspired fellow combatants through political education, discipline, and unwavering belief in the justice of the liberation struggle. Captured after the campaign, Comrade Phokanoka was sentenced to 18 years imprisonment, most of which he served on Robben Island. Yet prison did not diminish his spirit. Like many of his generation, he transformed imprisonment into a university of revolution, emerging with even greater conviction, wisdom, and commitment to the ideals of free, democratic, and non-racial South Africa. Following his release, Comrade Phokanoka chose the difficult path of nation building. He rejected the allure of political office, declining a parliamentary position in democratic South Africa. Instead, he dedicated himself to peace building and public service in the Northern Province, believing that leadership was measured not by status, but service to the people. His revolutionary contribution earned him some of the nation's highest honors, including the Order of Lituli in silver, awarded for his outstanding contribution to democracy, nation building, human rights, and peace. He also received the South African Communist Party prestigious Moses Kotane Award, recognizing a lifetime devoted to national liberation and socialism. Those who knew Comrade Phokanoka remember not only a fearless freedom fighter, but also a humble intellectual. He possessed a rare ability to explain complex political ideas with clarity and simplicity. He believed that revolutionary leadership required continuous learning, principled debate, and disciplined organization. His life reminds us that true revolutionaries combine courage with knowledge, conviction with humility, and sacrifice with selfless service. As we reflect on his legacy, we are reminded that the struggle for which he sacrificed so much did not end with the attainment of political freedom. His vision calls upon us to continue fighting against poverty, inequality, unemployment, corruption, and even form of injustice that undermines the dignity of our people. It calls upon today's generation to defend democratic values while advancing the ideals of the National Democratic Revolution. To the youth of South Africa, Comrade Lawrence Phokanoka's life stands as a timeless lesson that education must serve humanity, leadership must be rooted in integrity, and freedom must always be accompanied by responsibility. Today, we honor not merely the memory of a man, but the values he lived for: patriotism, courage, humility, discipline, selfless service, and unwavering commitment to the liberation of humanity. May his soul, wherever he is, rest in peace. Amanda! It is up to us to ask ourselves questions. Given these credentials of Ndate Phokanoka, Rena, which we are still living today, what are we doing? Is the homework that we are doing? Are we selfless? Are we respectful? Are we position mongers? All these tendencies we see today, this is not what Comrade Pokes stood for. We worked with him at the first office of the ANC. We used to call it Mimosa House. Together with the Mundate Pala, he was staying in Sishiu. He didn't want any nice things. He lived a real life. He refused a lot of money. Among us here, if we can bring a bag full of money, we'll go like it's a pack of bananas. So there are very few humble revolutionaries nowadays. So this is a homework I'm giving to you, comrades. Let's go and introspect. Let's go and reflect. Where did we go wrong? And we'll get the answer. Manda!
Okay. We are now going to receive greetings, formal greetings this time. I know the comrades stood up and greeted you, but we are going to get formal greetings from the People's United Democratic Movement from Eswatini. Comrades, students, please, let's raise them with a revolutionary song.
Amandla, Long live the undying spirit of Ndate Lawrence Phokanoka. Long live. Thank you very much, Program Director. My name is Mlungis Makanya. I come from the People's United Democratic Movement, Pudemo, as mentioned by our Program Director. Ours here is to offer greetings. So I'm just going to say hi and sit down. But comrades, I think it will be important, with your permission, Program Director, to say but a few words about why we felt the compulsion to be here today. We stand here on established protocol that has acknowledged all of you important attendees to this memorial lecture. We apologize to the foundation. We were invited last year and we couldn't make it. We made sure this time around that we sleep in Pulukwane so that the mistake that happened last year does not repeat itself. What brings us here is the knowledge and appreciation that this lecture is about an internationalist. Because Comrade Lawrence was not just concerned about what was happening in the jurisdiction called South Africa, but he was concerned about what was happening in the region, the continent, and the world. Today, exactly 73 years ago, the people of Cuba, under the capable leadership of Fidel Castro, commenced a rebellion. It was not just a rebellion about the oppression that was obtaining in the island Cuba, but it was a rebellion against the system. And those comrades, together with Castro, understood this. And it was precisely for this reason that even upon the recording of victory in Cuba, they were never satisfied unless and until the system they rebelled against was defeated. So we came here today because we want to listen, President Zikalala, as you take us through in your address under the very important theme that I think is relevant: pursuing our national interest in a volatile and complex geopolitical environment. We are interested first and foremost in understanding, in the context of the life of Comrade Lawrence, who is the hour, in the context of the challenges of the struggle, particularly in our region and continent. I agree with you, Comrade Alex, that there is a need for us to appreciate that the struggles that Comrade Lawrence fought were struggles against settler colonialism, of which apartheid was just but an offshoot. To defeat settler colonialism, Comrade, I posit, can never be something that can be attained successfully within this imposed colonial jurisdiction. And that's why this lecture today, we are keen, Dr. Zikalala, because it is taking place during environment when there is of some easiness and some dust, where registration is confused to necessarily imply xenophobic calls. As we attended this annual lecture, we were called upon to register. When you move from one city to another city using public transport, you are invited to register. So registration is very important, because it is important that if anything happens here, we know who is here. And we must not confuse registration with documentation. I am a Swazi. When I enter South Africa, I enter through a port of entry. South Africa registers that there is a Swazi national who has entered, but it doesn't document me. So I think we must settle that so that we understand what is the issue is about. But I want to sit down, comrades, by leaving these challenges you take us through. The closest I came to knowing Comrade Lawrence was when I interfaced with one of the stalwart who knew him, and many of you, and I know definitely President Zigala will know him, Ndate Michael Tingake in Botswana, who took me through about what drove them as the pioneers of the liberation struggle in the region. And who made me appreciate better that participation in the liberation struggle in the region, Agim Holiswan, Dr. Alex. And he said to me, I gave to South Africa more than I gave to Botswana. When I was arrested and tried, the apartheid regime insisted that I was a South African. When I finished serving my sentence in Robben Island, they took me to Zeerust and deported me, and they said, this is a Mtswana. I'm saying this, comrades, because we've got to appreciate that South Africa will never be an island of prosperity in a region that is engulfed by political and economic challenges. Ningasihambisa today nithi mabahambe. We will be back next week unless and until we solve this problem. And the problem is simple. We are one people. Dr. Khapula amelas born of Nkambule. So I came to Pretoria to pay lobola for my wife, who was a Khapula. And indeed, the experience was you want to pay dowry for your cousin. That's when we also learned that the Nkambule and the Khapulas are related. The reality, comrades, is that we are one people. And we've got to fight and assist each other defeat settler colonialism and all its offshoot as one people. And that is what pushed Ndate Phokanoka and his generation to fight. And if you read about him, you will realize that he went through Botswana. He fought alongside Zimbabwean compatriots. And he was driven by this understanding that the African people need to unite to defeat settler colonialism that has divided them. With these few words, we want to say, comrades, we are looking forward to the lecture, but most importantly, to engaging the lecture, because we were told that we were invited to a festival of ideas in line with the stalwart that we are remembering today. Thank you very much.
Otlo Kena after HOD. What is his name? To me. M. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I was just saying I'm going to respond to the interventions. First, as a cultural activist, I'll just quote a poem from the lyrics of a song by Hugh Masekela, because with Pudemo, the focus has just been broadened into SADC. And so I'll be responding to that, but it's also speaking to the current migration crisis we've been having in the last few weeks in South Africa. When I respond to that, I will respond as an international relations activist. Here's a poem that speaks to exactly what President was saying. It's Hugh Masekela. The song is Stimela. There is a train that comes from Namibia and Malawi. There's a train that comes from Zambia and Zimbabwe. There's a train that comes from Angola and Mozambique, from Lesotho, from Botswana, from Swaziland, from all the hinterlands of Southern and Central Africa. This train carries young and old African men who are conscripted to come and work on contract in the gold and mineral mines of Johannesburg and its surrounding metropolis. 16 hours or more a day for almost no pay, deep, 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 deep down in the belly of the earth, where they are digging and drilling that shiny, mighty, evasive stone. That's the gold. I pause here, but basically says South Africa wasn't built by South Africans alone. South Africa was built by SADC to be the economic power, the economic capital, not only of SADC, but of the continent as a whole. We are the biggest economy on the continent. Now, as an international relations practitioner or activist, I say, in 2005, SADC developed a protocol on movement, free movement of persons. SADC has 16 member states. Today, only 10 members have signed the protocol on free movement of persons. and only 7 have ratified the free movement of persons, this protocol. It can't be implemented until 2/3 of the SADC member states have ratified it. By the way, South Africa was the first one to sign and ratify this protocol. Now, as activists, as civil society, we need to go back to our comrades from SADC member states to say, put pressure on your governments to sign and ratify this free protocol, this protocol on free movement of persons, so that ultimately SADC can be truly integrated. And that will solve this crisis of migration we are having. Right now, we are approaching it piecemeal. Botswana and Namibia have just agreed that their nationals don't need passports to travel between the two countries. South Africa has done the same thing with Lesotho. But East Africa, under the leadership of the East African community, have already integrated East Africa to an extent that the nationals are just using their IDs to travel across the entire region. So I'm saying, yes, we are harsh on South Africa, but we should also talk to all the SADC member states to say, if you were to ratify this protocol, we wouldn't be having this problem we are having today. The HODs here, the HOD of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture shall come and greet us, and immediately Tumi M, the poet, should come on stage. As soon as she finishes, Tumi M should render a poem. And by the way, we also have another published poet in our midst, Dr. Martin Setlapelo. But I'm not hijacking him to come and perform. I just want to confirm in public that I'm supposed to republish his poetry collection, the poetry that he wrote when he was on Robben Island. The book is coming. Where's HOD? Come through HOD, and Tumi M also come on stage, so that when she finishes, then you take the mic.
Thank you very much, Program Director of the FED. We really appreciate. I just took a decision to make greetings before I come to this a podium, knowing that it's a very big podium for me. I was not even warned by the program director that I would be here, but as the Department of Sports and Culture, I think it's very much appropriate just to greet. I'm not so sure, program director, whether the poet will then come first, because he's an artist after me. Thank you very much. I actually grew up this young girl, DG. She's one of the artists from the Department of Sports and Culture, and we were there to teach her how to, interpret art that can actually be used to build the nation, art that can be used to heal the nation, and art that can also be used to preserve the good memories and the good history that has been spoken about here. We are just here to greet as the Department of Sports and Culture. And you'd wonder why the Department of Sports and Culture is here partnering with the foundation. The reason is one. We are here to remind the nation that we are using the heritage that we are speaking about here to build the nation. We are here to remind each and every one of us that sport, arts, and culture, its greater mandate is that of social cohesion, nation building, and also to ensure that we preserve culture and we preserve heritage. You can't preserve culture, you can't preserve heritage of the people without knowing where they come from. So the history of Lawrence Phokanoka is very important to the province of Limpopo, not only to this province, but to the entire nation and to the country and to the SADC region and to the African continent. Why are we preserving this history and why are we preserving this heritage? Is to ensure that next generations to come, they know the foundations of where we come from in fighting for the liberation of this country. And greater giants like Lawrence Phokanoka have been there. And there's no way that as government we can ignore that history. That history cannot be ignored. That is why we are here, to ensure that we record this history, we preserve this history, to ensure that it's also in our provincial archives, that we then learn from its memories and we then share the memoirs with the young generation and with the future of this country. So we are here to preserve the history. We are here in support. We are here to ensure that this heritage does not actually be under our tables or under our chairs, but is actually preserved to ensure that we take this country forward in building its nation and in fostering social cohesion and nation building. Program Director, let me thank you. Thank you very much.
Ge nkebe ke le nong ka kalla godimo ka sie fase, ka kalla malekelekeng, ka reta ka reteletša. E le ge ke reta sa gešo sebata, ke thwadi, ke mampudi, ke thoba dingwe melala, ke sebata, ke mogale, ga galefe ka bogale o galefa ka boleta. Ke monana mona molantwa, o thetheoga tata ona mathadintha kwa go thathamolla mathata go tliša ke tlala ešita lona lenyora. Megolokwane basadi, ge le go thaga o thagile, go segolo sekhukhune, o thagile phahla mmakadikwe, o thagile ya gešo province ya Afrika Borwa, lefatshe la gešo la Afrika Borwa, a thaga ya gešo province ya Limpopo. Ke kgopela megolokwane basadi, o thetheoga tata ona maseka, a le gona mathadintha kwa go thathamolla mathata go tliša ke tlala ešita lona lenyora. Ke tata go rena, ke mogalajwe, ke sebata, ke madimetša, ke Phokanoka. O tšwa bopedi ga bo bapedi, ke moreta ke sa phopholetše, ka nagile go thaga, o thagile ke mešomo wa gagwe. Ge le go reta, o sa tlile go reta le ke meloko e sa tlang go tswala. Ge le bo re a ba reta, ka ne ba re belegetše morwa, ba re belegetše wa madi a tokotoko. Ke sebata, ke thwadi, ke mampudi, ke thoba dingwe melala, ke mogalajwe, ke Phokanoka. Ge le gabo ke batho ba letsoko, ke batho ba dikoma, re a moreta re sa phopholetše. Ge le ba bangwe ba sa tlile go belegwa bosasa, ba sa tlile go belegwa mengwaga e tlago, ba tla be ba moketeka ba re. Ge le ga phata ba ile ba ušakalana le go lwela naga. Phahla go ile gwa belegwa sebata, gwa belegwa mampudi, gwa belega ngwemelana. Polelo o bolela ka tlhompho le boikokobetso ka neetswana tso badimong. Le bothaga jwa polelo o bothaga a fele a phopholetša sa gešo Sepedi ka dika le diema a lwela ya gešo naga ka boikokobetso le ka tlhompho. A fela a gopola tša gešo tša Bapedi, a fela a tlola ka lešo letsoku, a fela a tšholla ona motsoko fase, a fela a phasa re ya gešo naga ka e boe. Amandla! Nna mo go Shadiang Mphele ke go retile ge e le ya gešo kgoro ya dipapadi bokgabo le setšo re go reta re sa boele morago ka ne ge e le ya gago mešomo re e bone. Šo kgoro ya bokgabo dipapadi le setšo re go leleng ba Phokanoka ka ne lebelege sebata, lebelege mampudi, lebelege thoba dingwemelana. Wa go reta o fa ke mogoshadi, ke madienu, ke ngwana Bopedi, ke ngwana Sekhukhune. He le ga gešo ke bwa kwa Bopedi ke tšwa soko dibeng sa Mmameriti mebedi meraro monga Maloba. Ke nna motho a bommaselepe Mahlako. Gore nkebe ke le gona ka go bona Phokanoka, gore ka go bona o sa phela ka go reta ka go reteletša, gore ba mponega ka dibonega ka be ka bonala mošwa mawatle ka go reta ke sa thothomele ke fele ke itea gešo ntepa ke re wa ba mponega ka dibonega ka bonala mošwa mawatle. Ke go reta ke le mo go Shadiang Mphele, ke nna motho a botse ka Masemola Mokwena. Ba re go tseka Masemola Mokwena o jele kgomo a bete se bogale a se ma betologela tšhaba tša Masemola Mokwena malaka maso. Phokanoka we a moya bago o re golele ge e le ya gešo kgoro ya dipapadi bokgabo le setšo re go retile o sa tlile o reta le ke meloko e sa tlang go tswalwa ke tšhaba baditi.
Thank you. In the time was we've been doing very well because we started an hour later, but I'm glad to say that we are going to complete the first part of the program and by hosting Comrade George Mashamba. I said in 1984 when I came to the university, I joined the Azanian Student Organization, and by joining Azaso, I became part of the family. And I then had two mothers here. We had Comrade Joyce Mabudafasi, who worked in the library. She became our mother. In Mankweng, we had Comrade Joyce Mashamba, who also became our mother. But also on campus, because then it was the center of anti-apartheid activities across the then Northern Transvaal. We also had many brothers. In Mankweng, we had Comrade Franz Mohlala, and later on we had Comrade Thabo Makunyane, who was fresh from Robben Island, Comrade Alec Nchabeleng, also fresh from Robben Island, Comrade Ifi Mohali, who was the first president of COSAS, and a co-accused with Comrade Thabo Makunyane. also became our brother. From the colleges of education, there were many comrades, but I remember the late comrade Ngwako Ramalepe. We also had comrade Castle Matali. From the labor movement, we had comrade Alf Makaling, the late Alf Makaling. May his soul rest in peace. We had comrade Sichaba Nkwana. These are the people who brought us, and this is the community that brought us as young student activists in this region. Now, I'm going to invite Comrade George Mashamba to come and greet us as our elder.
Tla kopa tshwarelo. Nna tša amandla ke ditsebe. Ka ra kuzang ka bilngwa ku UDF. I was born in the underground, remained there. And I go home in Lubulela. Pilas Shava. Mara mamuntle ba re ke tla mo ke tlo dumediša. Oh, no, from the greetings. Ke manete ke tla mo from the greetings. Ke tla ke le mo ke tšwa kae na. Ke tšwa ko ba robetši. Comrade Phokanoka greeted us, welcomed us when we arrived in Ruin Island. I stayed with him there, then was transferred to Johannesburg prison. I followed him there again, welcomed me. But before I go into that, I would like to say that I'm standing here as a product not only of Comrade Phokanoka, and I'm greeting you not all on behalf of Comrade Phokanoka, but of all those who have come before us. I'm standing here greeting you in the name of Pinta Chaveling, Kadimeng, Mark Shope, Makwidi Pala. I learned a lot from all those comrades. I'm coming here having learned a lot from Mandela, from Govan Mbeki, from Sisulu, and from many others. And what I learned from them is that whenever you reflect on our situation, you must do three things, which I think the main speaker will deal with. Salvaging the past. That is, you look into the past, identify what was negative, what was wrong there, and cut it out, and build on the positive. Secondly, you confront the present, and in so doing, anchor the future. Therefore, there's a challenge, not simply to celebrate and remember, but to learn and be able to go forward, point a finger forward. In doing so, I'd like to say this, that well, colonization, which was actually the spread of capitalism, We usually say we're fighting colonization, capitalism, no. But what's colonization? It was the spread of capitalism throughout the whole world. So if you genuinely fight against colonialism, then you'll have to fight capitalism. And when it spread, it has had its own agents. They discovered us. They discovered the mountains in Africa, the rivers, the animals, and some other creatures which looked like people. To them were not people. And they made use of us, of our soil. They made us of our trees, our animals, and us. And the African people in the African continent were all silent. They were cut off from history. If you read the history of Africa, in my country at least, it's the history of the activities of the colonizer. Our history stopped long ago. So it's important to note also that I'm standing here to greet you on behalf of not only the politicals, but also our forebearers. Some of the Hoshi who were brave enough to go to Bloemfontein in 1912. And there's some who joined the struggle. I went into a family and got married to a family where their grandfather was one of the chiefs who was in 1912, in Bloemfontein 1912, Hoshi Shilubani Mhlaba. We were lucky that we even have one Hoshi become the leader of the ANC. Chief Albelu Tuli. But all these people, right up to Phokanoka, what were they doing? They're trying to make sure that the African people once more become the subject of history and not the object of history. They were fighting that way. Having been silenced, we once more open up our voices and be heard. And Doctor, 1994, we say it was a democratic breakthrough. But what did it mean? What was its significance? And what have we done to advance the struggle, making use of that breakthrough? But I must say all of us were guilty because we did not really make use of that breakthrough. What we did, we say we're ready to govern. But O.R. Tambo told us that, well, we must move away from, Oliver Tambo speaks the book. We must move away beyond national liberation to join people's liberation, emancipation. And we're not moving there. We want to build society now. But we have not, you can't want to destroy this building and then halfway you start rebuilding it again. On the old foundation, there'll be problems. That's what we have been doing. So I will say that it's important to learn from the past and also understand where we are now. The democratic breakthrough didn't come by magic. It was not, with due respect to some of our leaders who have spoken about a peaceful transition. Because the transition from 1652 to 1994, we're actually walking over the corpses of our people, wading through their blood. Even in the 90s, when you go to blood was still flowing. So it's a misnomer to say that it was peaceful. It was not peaceful at all. And in the process, we lost a lot. We lost a lot that we have learned in the struggle. One, Comrade Phokanoka and the other comrades are in prison. They didn't say this is ANC, this SACTU, this is the Communist Party. Sivas Khabla together. Those in the camps tell me also that the guerrillas also were Khabla together, the generals here, the commander. And it was Khabla, common politics. How about the politician, about the dialectical and historical tradition? It was not something that was a preserve of the Communist Party. It's the way we understood things. But the breakthrough, we should have enabled us to open up the eyes of the people in our country, enable us to preach this understanding that we've acquired. We did not make use of it. Politics gradually died down. Secondly, the breakthrough that would have allowed us to create as many women's organizations as like wonders throughout the whole country, youth formations, civics, all those things. Gradually, either they died or they become transformed into civic structures, organs of civil society. And we all thought that, well, only through parliament can we advance the struggle. That's why today we fight. In some place we kill each other to go to that parliament, to go to that legislature. And I think as we greet you, the Chabelings, the Kadiming, the Shoppers, the Mandelas, the Zulus, they're watching us. Are we going forward or we think we have arrived, this is Jerusalem? Because what will say that, well, 1994, to follow one comrade here, what he said about the Bible, we crossed the Red Sea. We're in the desert now. We still have to cross the river Jordan, biblically speaking. But we are not doing it the way we should do it. Comrade Doctor, we agreed in the alliance, not because we sat around the table, because we encountered each other in struggle and discovered that we have got a common enemy, and as the struggle goes on, that we've got a common vision, actually. It was a through struggle that the ANC, as the time went on, discovered that many of its African members actually, they are workers. It was in the struggle that the Communist Party, those white people came to South Africa, fighting against capital. They discovered that many of the workers, as history went on, they were Africans. And we struggled together until 1955. All our vision of New South Africa was actually agreed, embodied in the Freedom Charter. That's what bound us. And as time goes on, the ANC went on, I won't repeat about the NTR, but went on to agree in Rogoro that you must not confuse our nationalism with classical nationalism, in which the elite of the oppressed fight in order to replace the former oppressor, the exploiter of the masses. Starting Texas with the ANC. They go on to say that we will not allow any individual or groups of individuals, be they black and white, to monopolize the wealth of our country. And I think they are watching. I think that's where our problem lies. Are we still that glue that kept us together? This Freedom Charter? Are we really on course? And I think as we reflect here, we must also learn something from Phokanoka and the others who taught me that when you speak English, you must know that in a society that is divided, every word has a different meaning for a worker, a different meaning for a capitalist amongst us, a different meaning for a peasant. You must always define those terms. Just as under apartheid, when you talked about boys, for the African, a boy was any male black, it doesn't matter whether they are 8 years or 2 years. But to us, well, a boy was a child. So even today, we use common, similar ways, but talking from different perspectives. And I'm here to hear from the veteran. I'm very much interested. National interest. He will tell us. National interest. The doctor will ask you, national interest of the worker and the capitalist, are they identical? But he will tell us. So all I'm saying is that, well, greeting, I'm not greeting on my behalf, but by those who taught me, and they are watching. Phokanoka, Radumedish. Leadership, Radumedish. But out of something, Radumedish. And thank you very much. That's where I went to talk to the ANC in our country. Now and again, I was inside the country. Thank you for accommodating us. And I think what you have said is 100% correct. I also write poetry. I've got 2 volumes unpublished. As they were reading here, I said, my God, I should have brought my poem here. It is called Who Are They? These people say Mabahambe. Do we know who they are? Are they to be our enemies, or the people who must stand together with to fight the horrors of capitalism on the continent? Because we have been divided by them. When they divided us, we're not there. At that conference in the 19th century, 18 whatever. We must understand what they've done to us. Like I said, they discovered us, took our land, transformed our land, and no longer be a means that we use to produce food for ourselves, shelter, whatever, and so on, but something to produce things we must sell. And they turned us as people who no longer work for ourselves, but work for others. They chained us. Our parliament now, parliamentarians, is a circus. It's a debating society. But our original parliaments, the whole, they were deliberate centers of discussion to solve the tribe's problems. There's drought. What do we do? When there's drought, that's what we're discussing. There's theft, whatever. But today, we'll discuss Mashamba is busy beating his wife. That has nothing to do with the parliament. Report to the police station. Muketekete is a thief. Police station, that's not a parliamentary issue. And we spend time wanting to prove that the ANC is better than the IEF, the DAs, whatever, and so on. We didn't send you there to go and debate, but to deliberate on the issues that concern the nation. We left that. Lastly, which will make you unhappy, this from the Khoshicha Khade. They came and told us that we're like, we're no longer send my concerns, make my requests from God through my shamba. Ba mpotša gore no tšeo ke di tswile tseleng. They told me that, well, my grandfather can't talk to God on my behalf. We accepted that. And I must go to Kuku Abraham. Must go to Kuku Jacob. I understand well, according to the Bible, they are the chosen race, but what is happening today there? And maybe sometimes in conclusion, we pray and our prayers don't reach up there because Abraham doesn't know. Really shut up there. So we greet you and wish that well. You have wonderful deliberations after the speech here. And that maybe we'll get direction and once more. Because retreated ceiling. Retreated ceiling. When we talk about renewal, for me, is a reorientation back to the path. Retreated ceiling. That's why I live advice sharp. How retreated ceiling. With those few words, well, I'd like to say have wonderful deliberations. I hope by the time we end our deliberations, Woku will be happy wherever they are. Phokanoka.
Now we are going to go into the main program of today. Here's a challenge I got from our elder that after the keynote speech, there should be someone summarizing it in Sesotho. We'll give that person 3 minutes. 3 minutes is a lot. I told you I'm a marketer. Marketers are able to sell a product in 30 seconds. So I'm not so sure who's going to volunteer to summarize the speech in 3 to 5 minutes in Sepedi so that the elders on the audience could be able to take something back home. I'm going to ask Dr. Annette Grisel. She's one of the trustees of the Phokanoka Foundation to come and present our keynote speaker.
You comment, Chair. Okay. Amanda, long live the fighting spirit of Comrade Phokanoka, long live. Long live the fighting spirit of Comrade Phokanoka, long live. I was inspired by my comrade here. Comrades, just to say it's wonderful for me to be back here. No, I was not a student at Turfloop, but I was an activist. I used to come here in the 80s, and there are still comrades here today that I was with in those days. And it's very great for me to be here again at this center of activism and revolution. But my job here is obviously to introduce our speaker, but I want to also acknowledge the chairperson, the members of the board, the family of Comrade Phokanoka, the leaders of the alliance partners, the leagues, our elder, Comrade Mashamba, and all the esteemed guests. It's a real honor for me to introduce Comrade Dr. Snukisi Kalala, one of our country's most dedicated and courageous, yet humble revolutionaries. He's made an immeasurable contribution, not just in the struggle which brought apartheid to its knees, but also in laying the foundations of our democracy that we continue to build. He was awarded the Order of Luthuli in silver for his contribution to national liberation, and he's left a lasting legacy across South Africa's political, media, and corporate governance landscapes. But of critical importance as we sit here today, because we are looking at the issues of today, as many of the speakers have discussed, is his role as the president of the ANC Veterans League in helping us to course correct. Yes, we need a course correction, as our comrade has also alluded to. So through the Veterans League, he has helped to drive the renewal and rebuilding of the African National Congress, but not just the African National Congress, but the broader national democratic movement, restoring public trust, and the sound's just gone. Oh, okay, thank you. Dr. Zikalala was first elected unopposed as president of the Veterans League in 2027, and he was re-elected in 2023. He has exemplified the ideological fortitude, because without ideology, we are nothing. He has exemplified the ideological fortitude that arguably left us wanting as we sought to reverse the centuries-old legacy of colonialism and apartheid and to build a better life for all. He's unambiguously demonstrated that the struggle for freedom goes beyond the vote and formal political power, essential as those are, but it's also about the battle of ideas and fundamental socio-economic transformation. As the Managing Director of News and Current Affairs at SABC, he sought to transform the SABC from his master's voice to that of a public broadcaster that serves the interests of the citizenry as a whole, the people as a whole. Comrade Zikalala has continuously contested the dominant neoliberal narrative which continues to prevail, and he also has been attacked on that basis. He was an activist in the liberation struggle and in the underground dating back to 1967, when he joined the ANC at the age of 16 years. There's something about 16 years. He was active, very active in building the underground networks. He was recruited by none other than Comrade Winnie Mandela. May his soul rest in peace. And he worked closely with prominent struggle figures to revive the underground structures, build networks, distribute anti-apartheid ANC literature, and secure safe houses for Umkhonto we Sizwe operatives. For this, he faced detention and banning. In 1969, he was among the youngest arrested in a sweep of underground network members. He was in solitary confinement and for 18 months in detention. When he was released, as happened with many of our comrades, he was slapped with a banning order. In 1974, he left South Africa for Botswana and Zambia, and also underwent intensive military training in Angola and the German Democratic Republic. He was an operative out of Botswana, yes, part of SADC, when he was declared a prohibited immigrant, and after a raid on safe houses, he was then deported, and he was deported by the Botswana government at the behest of the apartheid government. He also joined when he was in Lusaka, he joined the Revolutionary Council Central Military Headquarters, an organ specifically tasked with advancing the internal armed struggle. In addition to all of this activism, he has a very impressive academic record, including an honors in industrial sociology at WITS, a master's degree and a PhD in journalism from the Sofia University of Bulgaria, and he also has done some management courses. He made a huge contribution in media broadcasting and public communications, including in the early days of our democracy. We will make this document available, but because of time, I'm not going to go through all the details. He had a prominent career in journalism for 25 years. He was in the executive leadership at the SABC, deputy editor-in-chief for radio and television news. He served as executive editor, and then in 2004, he was the group executive of the SABC News and Current Affairs Division. Very interestingly and importantly is that he had to transform this racist SABC institution into an institution that was able to reflect the voices of ordinary people and in the interest of the public, the people as a whole. But he also introduced important innovations. He integrated the radio and television news gathering. He introduced, anybody's seen Morning Live? That's, I mean, many of us watch that. He conceptualized and launched Morning Live, as well as other important programs. Importantly also, our comrades were talking about the importance of science and innovation. He introduced digital transformation in the SABC, and many, many other achievements. We often forget that our leaders and our activists have a personal life. Amidst all, and you know, often our activism and our leadership takes us away from our personal lives. But Comrade Zikalala was able to be a dedicated family man. He shares his life with his wife, Dr. CPM Zikalala. He has 4 children and 3 grandchildren. But I think where I want to end is on the issue of renewal and rebuilding. Dr. Zikalala has played a central role in efforts to turn around the African National Congress and the democratic movement in general, particularly following the poor electoral outcomes in 2024. This strategic setback showed us that the people of South Africa were losing confidence in our ability to deliver on the promise of democracy and to actually achieve a better life for all. This was captured in the slogan that the comrades put across: renew or perish. Renewal is not a choice. It's not something we perhaps maybe don't need to do. The message from the Veterans League is renew or perish. Dr. Zikalala has always put the interests of the people of South Africa first, regardless of the consequences. In 2024, in one of his important speeches, he said, "We are in government, but we have lost power. And we need to speak about how we can grab victory from the jaws of defeat. We will never give up." But the question was about whether we have used power to actually achieve our democratic goals. And obviously central to this agenda is thoroughgoing socio-economic transformation, ensuring effective service delivery. As president of the Veterans League, he also vigorously advanced the integrity agenda and the importance of ethical leadership. He has taken an unwavering stance against corruption and malfeasance and the need for consequence management for those implicated in wrongdoing. He has been at the forefront also because Dr. Zikalala is not just a man of words. He's very good with words. That's part of his job, but he's an action-oriented person, which I think is very much what we need. He's been at the forefront of efforts to address multiple challenges in local government and restore service delivery, electricity, water, sanitation, refuse removal, potholes, and infrastructure. These are not fancy ideas. These are the basics that our people expect and demand from us. And we know that these priorities were clearly set out in the local government action plan, the councillor's roll call, and so on, as far back as September 2025. 2026, we have declared the year of decisive action to fix local government and transform the economy. And Dr. Zikalala has been at the forefront of these service delivery efforts, including the ANC Service Delivery War Room and the many war rooms that exist, but also in the city of Johannesburg. We are indeed honored to have a leader of Dr. Zikalala's caliber to deliver the third annual Lawrence Phokanoka lecture. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. And let us first acknowledge the family of Phokanoka and members of the board, and also the students who are here, and also the members of the Communist Party, and Podemo, and all those who are here. It is a profound honor to stand before you today, entrusted with the opportunity to reflect on a question that sits at the very heart of our collective future. How do we pursue our national interest in a world that grows more volatile and complex by the day? Yet, to chart a path forward, we must first anchor ourselves in the soil from which we have grown. We do so today by honoring a life that embodied resilience, intellect, and unwavering commitment to the liberation of our people. On the 10th of June, the late Comrade Lawrence Phokanoka would have turned 98 years old. He was born in the dusty village of Rapatla in Sekhukhune-land, in the Middleburg district, a place where running water was a distant dream, where the community relied on pit latrine toilets, and where basic infrastructure was non-existent. It was a sparsely populated, underdeveloped rural area, deliberately neglected by a system that saw its people merely as reservoir of cheap labor. That system was apartheid, rooted in white supremacy and Afrikaner nationalism, codified in 1948. It mandated the physical, political, and social separation of racial groups to preserve minority rule. It disempowered the black majority in their own land, not because of any failing of their own, but simply because of the color of their skin. Under colonialism and apartheid, the Bantustan and townships were designed as reservoir of cheap labor, a constant ready supply for factories and farms. This spatial development program was not an accident. It was deliberate, and its legacy endures up to today. The village of Rapatla, even now, still struggles with water, lacks pipe sewerage, and its people still rely on pit latrine toilets, which is an embarrassment to us. When Comrade Madimeja was just 7 years old, his family made a sacrifice that so many black families were forced to make. They sent him to live with his aunt in Alexandra Township, seeking a better education for their son. He began his schooling at the Lutheran church in that overcrowded township. But schools for black children were starved of resources. Hendrik Verwoerd, the architect of Bantu education, declared that there was no place for black people in the European community above the level of certain forms of labor. The curriculum was deliberately stripped of subjects that might ignite intellectual curiosity or political ambition. Education for black people was designed to make black people what you call hewers of wood and collectors of water. So like every black child under apartheid, Comrade Madimeja encountered racial oppression at a tender age. Alexander in many ways was not different from Rapatla, overcrowded, neglected, a township reliant on communal taps, pit latrines, and candles for light. Actually, that's where I grew up, was born and grew up in Alexander. Yet it sat in the shadow of Johannesburg, the heart of mining capital, drawing black families seeking opportunities. They became the cheap labor that built the city. Comrade Madimeja moved from school to school until he settled in Kilnerton High School in 1954, completing his matric in 1958. He then registered to study physics at Fort Hare University, a 9-hour train journey from Johannesburg. Fort Hare was the most advanced institution of higher learning for black South Africans, founded in 1916 as a South African native college precisely because black people were excluded by law from white universities. It is not every individual who studies physics. It requires a naturally curious, mathematically inclined mind, a problem solver who seeks to understand the very workings of universe. Despite having been educated under Bantu education, Comrade Madimeja possessed a sharp ability to grasp the political landscape and seek solutions to overthrow the white racist regime. As Karl Marx wrote, it is not the consciousness of men that determines their being, but on the contrary, their social being that determines their consciousness. Close quote. The oppressive conditions under which Comrade Madimeja grew are shaped by his character and his outlook. It was at Fort Hare when he became politically active, first joining the South African Communist Party, and later the African National Congress. He was active in resolving students' dispute with the university administration. As a mathematically inclined problem solver and as a student of physics, every move he made was calculated, designed to yield results that would hasten the destruction of apartheid. He was organizational by nature, elected to represent Fort Hare at the launch of the African Students Association, a student body which was affiliated to the African National Congress. Comrade Madimeja was not impulsive. Like a chess player, he measured every step. He took time to internalize the painful transition from peaceful protest to armed action, a shift precipitated by the Sharpeville massacre on 21st of March 1960, when police opened fire on peaceful pass law protesters, killing 69 and wounding more than 180 innocent people. On April 1960, the apartheid regime banned all political parties and the liberation movements through the enactment of the Unlawful Organization Act, number 34 of 1960. After the banning of all these political organizations, organizing and challenging the regime's law through peaceful means became nearly impossible. In December 1961, the African National Congress established Umkhonto weSizwe as a military wing of the organization. Actually, it was the African National Congress and the South African Communist Party who established Umkhonto weSizwe. Its leaders included Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Govan Beki, and Joe Slovo. The primary objective of Mkhonto we Sizwe was to exert armed pressure on the racist regime government to abandon its policies of racial segregation by carrying out attacks on military and industrial installations. After several coordinated operations, Mkhonto we Sizwe likewise was banned by the apartheid regime. When the police caught wind of Comrade Madimeja's political activities, he was advised to leave the country as arrest was imminent. He joined his comrades in Botswana and was flown to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Together with his comrades, he spent a year in military training in Moscow before returning to Tanzania to await deployment back into the country. As a committed and brave MK cadre of Lutuli Detachment, he participated in the joint Wangisi Polilo operation alongside the Zimbabwean People's Revolutionary Army, ZIPRA, in former Rhodesia. This operation was designed to establish routes for MK guerrillas to cross Rhodesia into South Africa, allowing the ANC to send trained freedom fighters home to mobilize South African society. Comrade Madimeja was captured during the operation and sent to Pretoria Central Prison, where he spent a year awaiting trial. He was subsequently sentenced to 18 years imprisonment, serving his full sentence on Robben Island. Like a true student of physics, Comrade Phokanoka remained a logical thinker and a builder. Following his release from prison, he was deployed to lead peace and reconciliation efforts in the former Northern Transvaal, bridging the gap between the Mkhonto we Sizwe forces and the former regime's security apparatus. This assignment was not a small feat. He had to bring together two antagonistic forces, including the Northern Transvaal Security Branch, which had operated as a highly militarized mechanism of state terror, torture, and extrajudicial executions. Evidence presented at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission detailed how regional security branch, military intelligence, and local rights squads acted with complete impunity. Yet as a humble cadre, Comrade Madimeja declined an offer to serve in parliament, preferring instead to work directly on the ground as a junior official in the then Northern Transvaal Department of Safety and Security. Like a true soldier of Mkhonto we Sizwe, he worked tirelessly to transform the country and bring about meaningful social change. In later years, Comrade Madimeja lost his sight and retired. Rooted in his political and social convictions, he insisted on retiring at his home village in Sekhukhuniland. It was there that he passed away on July 20, 2005 at the age of 67. As a revolutionary movement, we honor his legacy by defending his values, principles, and traditions of his movement, the African National Congress. As members of the ANC Veterans League, we remain committed to advancing and defending the constitutional democracy for which he fought for so dearly. Over the last 3 decades, the ANC government has transformed a racist state into a thriving constitutional democracy. Under apartheid, South Africa practiced a parliamentary sovereignty, giving a minority parliament the power to pass any law without judicial interference. The ANC government, in 1966, Constitution reversed this completely. Section 2 establishes that the Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic, and any law or conduct inconsistent with it is invalid. The ANC government did not only dismantle apartheid, it established a democratic constitutional state backed by significant social progress. On social safety net, a welfare system providing grants to over 80 million vulnerable citizens. On education, a no-fee schooling system for millions of children and national students, and the National Students Financial Aid Scheme for lower income students was established. Healthcare and housing, expanded free access to primary healthcare, built new clinics and hospitals, and delivered over 4 million housing opportunities. On basic utilities, expanded access to national electricity grid from 36% to 89%. Before, when you even passed Limpopo, there were no lights in the villages. Now there is electricity grid. When you just pass at night, Limpopo is lit. The villages have got lights. South Africa's democratic era has seen the sector education and training authorities, SETAs, facilitate millions of learnerships and internships and apprenticeships, helping to integrate historically marginalized groups into the workforce. Comrade Madimeja would be proud to know that while Sikukuni villages still Comrade Madimeja would be proud to know that while Sikukuniland villages still lack yard water taps or dignified sanitation, they now have access to electricity. But we acknowledge that this is still not enough. They need tap water. Like every ordinary person in the country needs tap water. As a student of physics, Comrade Madimeja understood complex and volatile systems, utilizing logic to extract positive solutions. Today, our non-aligned foreign policy allows South Africa to navigate global volatility with strategic autonomy, refusing to be drawn into superpower geopolitical rivalries, while maintaining diplomatic and economic ties with both the East and the West. This said Lawrence Phokanoka Phokanoka lecture takes place during a hostile global market marked by sanctions, tariffs, and intense trade competition. The recent conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran has triggered global economic instability. The blockade of the Strait of Hormuz on the 13th of April 2026 caused severe economic ripples worldwide, directly impacting on South Africa as well. Surging fuel and food costs pushed inflation from 4% in April to 4.5% in May, forcing the Reserve Bank to hike repo rate to 7%. As a net importer of fuel, fertilizer, liquid and natural gas, South Africa remains structurally vulnerable to global energy shocks. Rising prices at the pump and food inflation directly strains household budgets, exposing systemic vulnerabilities. The important third lecture is taking place at a time when the revolutionary movement of Comrade Phokanoka, the African National Congress, is on the back foot and faces an existential crisis. For the first time since the dawn of democracy, no single party won an absolute majority. Having lost its majority in the recent national elections, the ANC entered into a coalition agreements to form a government of national unity, nationally, partnering with the liberal parties such as the Democratic Alliance and other smaller parties, and government of provincial unity, GU arrangements which were arranged in the provinces. Comrade Phokanoka, the factors behind the electoral decline include the emergence of the breakaway MK party, led by the former President Jacob Zuma, as well as public frustration over the ANC's delayed action regarding those implicated by the Zondo Commission. The Electoral Commission recorded a 58.64% voter turnout from a 27 million voter roll, meaning approximately 41.3% of registered citizens chose not to vote. Our people pulled our vote. They were saying, we're not going to vote for a government that does not deal effectively and decisively with their corruption. That's what they decided. Political analysts know that unemployment, crime, and non-actions on state capture drove many loyal ANC supporters to stay home rather than vote for opposition parties. ANC loyalists sat down and say we're not going to vote for a party that does not take decisive actions, as I said, against those who are involved in malfeasance and corruption. They stayed away. The official results recorded: the ANC got 40%, the DA 21%, MK Party 14%, EFF 9%, IFP 3%, 3.85%, PA 2.6%, and the Freedom Front 1.36%. The decision to enter into a coalition was strategic, yet these political dynamics remain inherently delicate. Looking at the downward trend, Comrade Phokanoka, with his analytical mind, would ask, what must be done to rebuild our structures and restore the movement's integrity? In 1902, when faced with economic and social crisis, Vladimir Lenin famously posed the question, what is to be done? He observed that the strength of a movement lies in the awakening of the masses, while its weaknesses lies in the lack of initiative and consciousness among its leadership. Comrade Phokanoka would ask the same question: what happened to the revolutionary morality and consciousness of our cadres? Some have amassed wealth through dubious means, bringing the organization into disrepute. Certain officials deployed in municipalities have failed to deliver quality services, become entangled in water tanker mafias, extortion networks, and tender irregularities. A comprehensive study by the Stellenbosch University Center of Complex Systems in Transition estimated that South Africa lost 1.6 trillion to systemic corruption and state capture between 2014 and 2019 alone, with broader historical estimates since 1994 exceeding 700 billion rands. Think of the jobs that could have been created, the rural schools that could have been built, and the clean water system installed in Sekhukhune and across the country if corruption has been dealt decisively and confronted head-on. While many dedicated public servants continue to serve with honesty, the actions of those who have failed the public trust severely damage the image of our movement. To address this, the ANC President, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, mandated the ANC Veterans League to lead the organization's renewal process. Addressing the ANC Veterans League at Birchwood in July 2023, President Ramaphosa noted that because veterans do not seek political office, they possess the moral authority to speak truth to power. He endorsed our 5-point plan on renewal program centered on mandatory political education, stricter membership criteria, and uncompromising ethics. The ANC Veterans League immediately developed a comprehensive foundation course on the core principles of the ANC, structured around 5 key modules: achieving national liberation and building democracy, promoting social justice and equality, nation building, social economic transformation, and people-centered governance. The foundation course was made compulsory across all 4,429 potential branches. Prior BGM sittings, all members of branches have to go through the foundation course. Members must complete this foundational education. Furthermore, during the 5th National General Council held in Ekurhuleni in December 2025, over 1,500 delegates participated in these political education sessions. Not a single person who went to the NGC was forced to have gone through the foundation course. While critics may dismiss compulsory courses as compliance exercises, we firmly disagree. The ANC has planted a crucial seed, and those dedicated in building an ethical, discipline movement are actively participating in our online political education programs. Additionally, the NGC adopted key internal electoral reforms. One, the NGC adopted a one member, one vote. This proposal was tabled by the ANC Veterans League and MK Liberation War veterans. This system aims to eliminate voter buying at conferences by empowering individual branch members to vote directly for dedicated, incorruptible candidates based on personal conviction. Strengthen the Integrity Commission. The Integrity Commission, the NGC recommended that the Integrity Commission findings must be implemented directly rather than being subjected to prior National Executive Committee's political deliberations, ensuring wrongdoers are not protected. The ANC has a tendency of protecting wrongdoers and recycling wrongdoers, which is unacceptable. On local government, as South Africa prepares for local government elections on the 4th of November 2026, citizens will vote for 4,488 wards across 257 municipalities comprising 8 metros, 44 district municipalities, and 205 local municipalities. The ANC aims to nominate candidates in every ward across the country. While currently the ANC controls 63% of municipal councils, reports from the Auditor General and National Treasury highlight that many municipalities continue to struggle with financial management, governance, and service delivery. The ANC declared 2026 as the year of decisive action to fix local government and transform the economy. Our 6 strategic tasks for the year are fix local government and improve basic service delivery. The ANC realized that if we don't fix local government, if we don't ensure that there's water, sanitation, that potholes are fixed, that jobs are created, that people in the country have security, and that corruption is dealt with, people won't go and vote. We, the ANC, saw that in the early year, and that was what the president said, that's what he'll do. But in practice, are we doing it? Are we fixing local government? In some municipalities, yes. In some, there are resistance. And which is the ANC, what the ANC is battling with? Speed up economic transformation, drive inclusive growth and job creation, wage war on crime, corruption, and gender-based violence, and femicide. Build national unity through the national dialogue and the 30th anniversary of the Constitution. Make organizational renewal irreversible while contributing to a better Africa and the world. To support these goals, the ANC Veterans League members serve on the local government intervention task team across the 160 ANC-controlled municipalities. However, persistent challenges include political interference at regional level. There is huge political interference at regional level, where you find that the chairpersons and the regional secretaries are interfering on issues of governance. Poor administrative management and the appointment of unqualified personnel. We have employed unqualified personnel at our municipalities. That is why when you drive here in Mankweng, when I came in, there are potholes here. Why do we have to have potholes where majority of our people are living? Why do we can't pick up dustbins, refuse, where our people are living? What are these municipalities doing? They employed unskilled, incompetent, and corruptible people. And so they must be dealt with, and severely so. As we face the forthcoming elections, getting people to register, then to vote is key. A conservative estimate is that more than 10 million people qualifying voters are not registered. And many of these will be young people whose futures will be shaped by decisions taken in municipal councils. Equally concerning is voter apathy. A vibrant democracy reflecting the will of the people requires everyone who qualifies to register and to vote. I hope all young people who are here have registered themselves to vote. And I hope all veterans who are here have registered their families to vote, and they know who to vote for. And so those who are not going, who have not registered, they won't go out of this door when you leave. Thus, comrades, the urgent and immediate task before every ANC branch, region, and province and volunteer is clear. Reach every household. Encourage every eligible citizen to register. Help first-time voters understand the importance of their voice. Assist those who have relocated to update their addresses. Where wards have been demarcated, make sure that voters check where they are registered to vote. So, when election day arrive on the 4th of November, let every eligible South African honor those who fought for our democracy by exercising the most powerful right we possess, the right to vote. Especially addressed to young people. As black people, we are not given the right to vote. For more than 300 years, I'm saying people died for you to get this vote. It's very precious. Please go and vote. That's what we're pleading. So when the election day, as I've said, the future of communities indeed is the strength of our democracy, which depends on it. To confront systemic wrongdoing, President Ramaphosa appointed the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry on July 21st, 2025 to investigate criminality, political interference, and corruption within the criminal justice system and local government. Its interim findings have already led to swift suspensions, disciplinary actions, and criminal referrals. The ANC Veterans League fully supports expanding this mandate to all municipalities in the country, all of them. And so that those who are involved in malfeasance, they must just face the full might of the law, irrespective of who you are. As a former member of the SACP, Comrade Madimecha understood that a strong government requires a disciplined, self-correcting movement. A movement that does not tolerate individuals who are involved in corruption and who are self-serving. In describing party discipline, President Xi Jinping observed that a strong political party is forged through continuous self-reform, strict internal discipline, and unbreakable bonds with the people. China's deliberate development strategy and firm stance against corruption helped it lift nearly 800 million people out of extreme poverty over 4 decades, accounting for 3/4 of global poverty reduction. Because of China's anti-corruption stance, China managed to take 800 million people out of poverty. Just imagine if the ANC government dealt severely with corrupt individuals, how many people would have taken out of corruption, out of poverty? How many? Millions. Had it not been for corruption. So the ANC must deal decisively against all those who are involved in malfeasance and corruption. While the ANC is a broad deliberation movement, rather than a cadre-only party, we must draw clear lessons on enforcing strict accountability and expelling corrupt elements without compromise through ANC disciplinary process. ANC cannot willy-nilly fire anybody. Every individual must go through a disciplinary process. But that disciplinary process must not have eyes. Must not say, hey, this is my cousin. Hey, this is my uncle. Hey, this is my brother. It must have no eyes. It must never. Immediately, if you your pocket into into the state coffers, tough luck. It should be like that. It should be like that. South Africa remains one of the most resource-rich nations on earth, holding 16 major mineral commodities ranked in the global top 10. Platinum, we've got platinum group metals, holding roughly 88% of world reserves, centered in Bushveld complex. Manganese, holding 80%, just imagine, of global reserves, primarily in the Transvaal supergroup. Gold and coal, significant historical reserves in the Witwatersrand Basin, and extensive coal reserves in the Karoo Basin. Industrial minerals, leading global producers of chrome, vanadium, titanium, and diamonds. With such immense natural wealth, comrades, the government and the private sector must collaborate on actionable economic policies that prioritize local mineral beneficiations and long-term job creation. South Africa is very wealthy. If our government, together with the private sector, they can be able to come together and say, how are we improving our economy in the country? I think we'll take millions of our people out of poverty. We'll take young people who are educated, especially black people, young people who are roaming the streets, who are unemployed, who get involved in Nyaupes. They'll be taken out of the streets and given job opportunities. If our government, together with the private sector, can look at each and every province, the minerals that we have, and focus on developing each and every province, we'll get rid of poverty in the country. We have the wealth that can take our people out of poverty. Conclusion. As we look forward to 2026 local government elections, the ANC Veterans League and the ANC have outlined a clear campaign focused on restoring public trust. We need rapid service delivery interventions, direct community house meetings and local cleaning campaigns, establishing community food gardens, targeting voter registration that will drive 4 million young people and voters and 4 million supporters. We want these 4 young people to go and vote for their party of choice. But we know which party of choice we're talking about. We need them. We need 4 million people who don't go and register to vote, to go and vote. Their vote is sacred, it's very, very important. And Comrade Phokanoka will be very happy. As you reflect on the life and legacy of Comrade Madimuja, Lawrence Phokanoka, we are reminded that the path to liberation was never easy, and the journey to build a just, prosperous society is equally demanding. His life teaches us that resilience, intellectual rigor, and unwavering principles are essential. In his honor, let us recommit ourselves to the renewal of the movement and the advancement of the national democratic revolution. Let us confront the challenges of our time with the same clarity, vigor, and courage that he demonstrated throughout his life. The question is not whether we can overcome, but whether we have the collective will to do what must be done. And I think we have the will to do what needs to be done. We have that will. And the answer, of course, lies in our hands. The answer lies in our hands. There is nothing, comrades, that the African National Congress, the Communist Party, the Mass Democratic Movement, that cannot resolve what the problems that we have in this country. There's nothing. There's nothing that we cannot fix as alliance partners. There is nothing. We know where the problem lies, and so let's deal with it and face it directly. With that, I thank you. Thanks a lot.
Amandla. Amandla. The first custodians of the Phokanoka brand were not marketers, strategists, or storytellers like me. They were his parents, a father who believed that education could illuminate even the darkest season, a mother who transformed ordinary clothes into garments of dignity. From one, he inherited knowledge, from the other, a sense of humanity. Together, they fashioned the earliest identity of a man who would one day become larger than himself. They understood a timeless truth: before a leader builds a nation, someone must first build the leader. We have 3 columns, but the third column is much bigger. I'll divide it into 2. So I'm going to take 4 questions, not comments, not speeches, questions to the keynote speaker, preferably from students also. This side, question? No question. Column 2, question? The last column, okay, you are noted. I want to take all the questions at once. 1 second question. Okay.
Thank you very much, comrade, for that elaborate and insightful speech. I'll just get straight to the, my name is Mtobi Sinchangas, the Secretary General of the Swaziland Youth Congress. My question would be to Comrade Stuki, and in relation to the, the immigration crisis in South Africa as well, and drawing from the contributions of the other speakers, is the view that has been taken by the South African state in response to that crisis the correct view that seeks to push forward the interest of not only of South Africans, but the working class in general? And what part should be taken to resolve that crisis? Thank you.
Is there any other question? No. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Shangase. The South African government's stance is very clear. It's very clear. It says that every individual who's in the country must be legal and documented. It's all. We don't support the view of much on much, much and much. We don't support the view of people, of especially some of their supporters who go about taking people by with force out of their houses and demanding ID books. We don't support that at all. That is why the Minister of Constitutional Development and Kubai Development issued a statement saying that the police must act. This mob violence is unacceptable in our country. The ANC does not accept mob violence that is taken by some of the individuals, and they must be arrested. I lived in exile. I lived in Botswana, Angola, Zambia, and Tanzania, Bulgaria. Immediately in Botswana, when I entered in 1974, I entered as a refugee, and I was en route to Lusaka to go and join MK. There were instructions by Oliver Tambo saying that we don't want people to leave South Africa. We want you to stay in Botswana, register yourself as a refugee, register legally yourself as a refugee, say you're going to school, and apply to go to school and live there. Because if we take you to Zambia, to Angola, it will be difficult for you to come back. Very, very difficult. And so because the struggle is inside the country, the best thing, be in the neighboring country, mobilize people inside the country, revive the structures of the ANC, build underground structures. That's why we are saying that we as veterans, majority of the veterans, are the ones who are involved with what you call mass mobilization, underground work. That's what we need. And so I had to register and live there as a registered refugee. When I went to Zambia, the same thing. When I entered, I get registered so that they know that I'm there. Same thing in Tanzania, same thing in Angola, same thing in Bulgaria, where I lived for 11 years. Immediately when I finished my PhD studies after 11 years, they gave me 1 month to pack my things and go. Though they were supporting the African National Congress, but they said, no, you're finished with your studies, Hambakaya. They were supporting us fully. They said, Hambakaya. But they were not hostile. They were saying that's an agreement that we had with the African National Congress, that when you finish your studies, you must go home. And we came home. And so the only thing that the ANC is saying, the ANC government, let them just get registered so that we know who is your neighbor. And exactly, there must be biometrics. The neighbors must know who you are. Currently, our neighbors, we don't know who they are. And then, of course, I say in my branch where I belong, I say, we must make sure that we as branch members here, we know who our neighbors are. We must know what the community needs are. When a member of the community is sick, we must be able to attend to the community member. We must know everybody who's here. Now we don't know who's here. Most of the houses have been hijacked. You see people coming in, coming out at night. It's unacceptable. And so what you are saying is that it's important for us that there must be a rule of law in South Africa, so that people should not do as they wish. And so we are not against people who are coming from outside, not the African National Congress. We lived in those countries. They made sure that we were comfortable, and they supported us. The people who were infiltrating weapons that we brought from Angola into South Africa were Botswanas. Were Botswanas because they had Botswana passports. They were Botswanas. And because we're illegal. And we're illegal there. But we transported weapons from Angola into Botswana, into the country. And the Botswana people helped us. Some of them were attacked and killed in 1985 when the SANDF attacked our houses in Botswana. But what we are saying is that let them get registered. It's all. But we are against the actions of some individuals who are attacking them. They must be arrested. It was embarrassing when I saw the police were standing when people were shambuking. It's unacceptable. The police must act. They must just act. Comrade Kubai said they must act. Thank you very much.
It's a quick one. Okay, let me make a commitment. I'm a trustee in the foundation, and I'm responsible for communications and stakeholder management. Here's the commitment I'm making. The speech will be published tomorrow on the foundation's website. It's www.phokanokafoundation.org. It will be there. Another commitment is that this speech and the 2 previous lectures will be translated into Sepedi for now, and in, say in 4 weeks, we will also publish the Sepedi versions on our website. Then, as a businessman, I own a marketing company and I also do publishing. As a businessman, I commit to publish the 2 poetry books of our elder, George Mashamba. I commit to publish them before December 16 because then, and yours, Comrade Martin, then you could buy the books in December. We are trying to create a culture of giving books as gifts because, and I started this when I was on diplomatic posting. I decided I was no longer going to give away South African wines as my corporate gifts. I bought books from home and I was giving them to my stakeholders in Italy because you give them a bottle of wine, they enjoy it. When they finish, they throw the bottle into the bin. But if you give them a book, it stays on their shelves in their offices or at home. And basically it means you have given not just that individual person that book. You have given a book to their family and their future generations because that book will always be there. So we are trying to build this culture of our people buying books, giving them away as corporate gifts. And corporates that are, because they are well-resourced, we also encourage them to buy books and donate them into our primary schools and high schools, libraries. Okay, I've made those commitments. I'm now going to ask a family representative to come and give vote of thanks. In fact, time-wise, we are 26 minutes later than anticipated, but considering that we started an hour late, I would say we have done very well time-wise.
Program Director. Thank you, Comrade. Ya go leboga Comrade Song. Ke thome ka go tamisha le go leboga. Ntate Khomeswana. Wa benga le legatong la Dr. Mabelebele. Gore amogela ka moga bo bona. A ke re khopetse reti. Re leboga ka mogo ba re swereng ga botse ka gona. Re madume a go tswa go family ke ya o ka leboga. a ke yeng ke tamišeng bagolo ba ka go ya ka kgati. Comrade Dr. Snoopy Zigala, the ANC Veterans League President. Comrade Dr. Thank you. Comrade Dr. Mavuso Msimang, the Deputy President of the ANC Veterans League in absentia. Comrade George Mashamba, our elder. Comrade Pira Nepala, our provincial chairperson of the ANC Veterans League. Comrade Sichaba Nkwan. Okay. Uji. Okay, in absentia, our ANC Veterans League secretary. The representative of the ANC in absentia. Ralemoa gore a se ba kgona go ba gona, le ba COSATU in absentia, we appreciate gore re ba ngwadile mo programmeng ya rena gore ba tle ba represente di organization tša bona. Comrade Rapulu of Mkondo Liberations War Veterans. Comrade Alex Masilo. Comrade Saul, a ke re bo sa bontsha mo gore speech sa Dr. Snoopy se tla ba gona. Re tlo kgopela gore le di speech tša bo Comrade Alex re be le tšona le tša bo Rapulu. Re be le tšona. Comrade, re a leboga. Re appreciate gape le the presence ya the HOD ya Department of Arts and Culture. A fegeleditše ke mogošadi a mphele. Hey, o ka re nka be ke ile ka tšea video o sa thoma ngwana gešo. O nthetetše sereto sela sa phogole gabotse ka botswerere. Re a leboga, o ka re le sona nke ba se gatišitše, re tle re kgone go se publisha. Re a go leboga sa mma. Fellow board members of the Lawrence Phokanoka Foundation, the Phokanoka family members present here, Mphile le Mahlaku, Meta le bana, Moloto wa Hlabirwa, Ngwatu Mosadi, comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Mere kwa ka aso mokalo eno ba gore ke tle ke leboge mošomo o bileng gona mo wa go tloša leina la phogole wa go tlo dira gore legacy ya phogole e tšwele pele a kere le go thuša gore setšhaba sa gabo rena se tle se be le seo se ikgantšhang ka sona ka baka la gagwe. Mme re ko mogolo kudu o re swantšong go iša ditebogo go ona re le ba lapa ke foundation. Ka gore ge e be se ka foundation ye ya phogole nka be re se mo lehono. Re ipotša re foundation e dira mmereko mo botse o mogolo wa go dira gore le yana mo a leng gona e be e le gore o ikgantšha ka se re se dirago. History e boletšweng mo e rutilweng mo re sa e hloka gore setšhaba sa gabo rena se kgone go tšwela pele. A re thušaneng le maloko a board se e leng gore re bona o ka re mo le bonang o ka re re šaeditše jwale ka maloko a board. Mejako ya rena ke ipotša ke re e bulegile Comrade Saul. O kae ngwato wa molo. Ke tla be ke sa dire phošo ge ke re mo re bonang re šaeditše ba bangwe. Mejako ya rena e tla phela e bulegile, tla nke rena bana ba bolena re tle re thušaneng go aga setšhaba se sa Afrika Borwa. A mantši a rena o bana bešong e no ba ona o wa ditebogo. Le gore re se ke ra lebala taba ya gore ka di 4 tša November re a go vouta re bušeletšeng re gateleleng. A re tlogeng reng go vouta ka mokgola ba beng ba re botša mo. Vote ela gore re go vouta gape ke taba ya gore batho ba bangwe ba lobile maphelo a bona gore tle re kgone go fetša re ya go vouta re tekgethela mmušo e leng wa rena. A re se keng ra ngala di vote. E reng ro itebelela gape le go registera ka di 1 le di 2 tša August. IEC tla be phatlaletše le South Africa ye. Re rote tlhola gape gore re ngwadišitše na. Re go vouta ga re voutelang rena go ba boma re voutela lekgotla leo wena o le ratang o bonang o kare le ka iša dinyakwa tša gago pele. A ko go leboge Comrade Saul. Legatong la lapa re a leboga re foundation le dira mmereko mo botse a re tšweleng pele. Thank you very much.
Ra leboga me Malenzwane. When freedom finally arrived, many sought prominence. He sought purpose. Many pursued office. He quietly declined the temptation to confuse visibility with significance. For he understood that leadership is not measured by how many people know your name, but by how many lives are transformed because you lived. That decision became perhaps his greatest brand statement: humility, authenticity, and service above self. Recognition followed naturally: the Moses Kotane Award, the Order of Lituli, the admiration of comrades, the gratitude of a democratic nation. Yet awards did not create his reputation. They merely recognized what decades of sacrifice had already established. For reputation cannot be manufactured, it must be earned. Comrades, we have arrived to the last item of today. Our board chair will be making announcements and giving us our closing remarks.
Thanks, Brasol and Chairperson of the subcommittee responsible for communications and stakeholder management. We have come to the end of the third edition for Lawrence Phokanoka Annual Lecture 2026. The foundation has got 5 years now. We were able to conduct annual lecture for 3 years. Comparatively speaking, let me start by thanking the Department of Sports, Art and Culture. Hey, this is a live band for students. In the morning, we had a discussion with the VC in the boardroom, myself and Dr. Annette, when we were looking at our work as the foundations. Among other things that we then concluded that we must do and finalize in the next 30 days is to make sure that ourselves, Department of Sports and Culture and the Office of the Premier, we finalize the Memorandum of Understanding and the Memorandum of Cooperation so that we clearly spell out what are the things that we need to do, who does what, how, and how. Concretely, the VC will be in the forefront of that arrangement, and I hope that it will then be clear in terms of the scope of work, looking into the issues that Khumetswana raised this morning. One of the things we bounce is that we need to ensure that on a STEM principle, the university should be able, if it's possible, admit students who are going to pursue math, science, so that these teachers are able to go out and teach learners. Arasanaga maths literacy, maths and science, core subjects. That's why I want to develop a school named after Lawrence Phokanoka, Executive Leadership and Management at NQF level 6. I mean, that is the work that we need to do and conclude in the next year. Among other things that we need to do is to venture and influence the type of research that we need to pursue, so that we're able to influence the direction of research and be able to make sure that we then contribute in the body of knowledge. Among other things that were raised here, we should be able to package and make sure that they are done. All right. We have got vacancies in the board. 2. In terms of our statutes, we are supposed to have 15 members of the board. We are 13. In terms of the decision of the board is that we need to get people who have got knowledge from the mining industry and financial sector. We humbly request volunteers to come and actually assist in terms of making sure that these foundations grow. Our executive secretary, Comrade Jeg Matlala, is here. Members of the board are here. Dr. Annette is also a member of the board responsible for STEM and 4IR. With Comrade Dr. Bushielo, Comrade Evans Chagu, and then Dr. Phil Mjara, who was the former DG of Department of Science and Technology. We just think, we hope that we'll be clearly finalizing the direction relating to that particular subcommittee, which is very important. We want also to thank all volunteers who are serving under various subcommittees. When we leave here, Comrade Musa will lead the delegation of students. I'm sure Musa is in the meeting. Yes. Students, we have got a band for you. When you have you will receive some of the gifts from Comrade Musa after this session. The rest of you and the VIPs will go to staff cafeteria. Yes, that's correct. Thanks, Comrade Sol. There is a special request from Mashamba's family. And I'm deliberately requesting that after lunch, so that we don't have fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we will proceed to Mashamba's family. And strictly, because we're going to the house, there is no tent. It's a house. We will request that you manage your numbers. Martin, DG will represent you. Let me use your name. Now, DG will represent you, and the HOD will represent the rest of other officials. Because it's in the house. We are not expecting more than 20 people. Because there are certain things that George Mashamba and the family would have to raise with us, together with the family of Phokanoka. And members of subcommittees, please, if you came with other extra 5 people, when you get into the house, request those 5 members to be outside. Because we want to manage the number so that ourselves and Phokanoka family and Mashamba family were able to then discuss some of the issues that we think we need to take it forward. Ndade Malaje, before you go home, see Bra Saul, the person who was chairing the meeting. We have got a matter that we must sort out with you and Comrade Prasol, have a partnership so that some of the issues that you have raised, they are able to find an expression in what we are going to print in the next 30 days, I hope, Prasol. We are also inviting volunteers to come and serve in our various subcommittees. We have got 4 subcommittees: finance, audit, risk. We have got subcommittees for Brasov, communication and stakeholder management. We have got subcommittee of Dr. Bushielo and Dr. Annette, Dr. Mjarwa, which is responsible for STEM and 4IR. We have got subcommittees relating to community development and leadership. We have got key focus areas. One is responsible research and innovation by Leshabe Rambedi. Sustainable development management and resources is led by Ambassador Selomlot. So that whoever has got interest to come and help us. please, you are free. We've got subcommittee headed by Dr. Hapola, responsible for governance and administration. These are the subcommittees that we are inviting members to come and donate their labor and intellectual capital. In the board, there was a view, which is not, we are not firm on that view. But the view is that we have been successful on organizing memorial lecture for the past 3 years. Next day, we must then go into programmatic implementation. If it's possible, change Polokwane Airport into Lawrence Phokanoka. If it's possible, change Streetom Tunnel into Lawrence Phokanoka. Our patron is in contact with the Minister of Health, looking possibility of also changing the new Polokwane Hospital. Our patron is actually having engagement with Dr. Aaron Mtswale. If that can succeed, we should be able to proudly, through our Department of Sports and Culture, be able to then influence those changes. Lastly, the attempt was made that we need to also to venture into collecting data, photos, everything that is related to Lawrence Phokanoka. Bring it here. If you want to write, initially we thought we would then say calls for paper submissions. But we end up saying, let's start by collecting on what we have. Photos, pictures, articles, and the rest of the information you have, so that we are able to put some booklet. Unfortunately, one of the volunteer doctors, volunteered his service so that we're able to put everything that we have. And unfortunately, he has been appointed as a resource person in our subcommittee so that he's able to do that. That's why today, improvement, a register online. It's a great achievement. Let attend the register go online. You should be able to register online, access these things, and make sure that it is done. Next day, we are coming again on the 25th, Sunday, the 25th of July. It will Sonntag santsist level 25 July in the main. Dr. Annette Chrisley is serving International Steering Committee on a National Dialogue, representing, nominated by us, but also the Forum for the Stalwart Foundations has actually nominated. Now we're going to propose, which I'm sure it has been done, that the first dialogue should go to Ranchabile. And in the morning we'll via through the grave site, and I'm sure events is not here. Okay. But that is our proposal, that we need to make sure that the first dialogue for the national dialogue that planned is actually being attended to. We wish you good luck, and thank you for your support, and thank you for you attending this 3rd edition. We will improve from time to time. If there are weaknesses, Impela would have to close some areas where we are not good. Last day I requested that those who are working, who can help us to support the family, you are free to do so. Meda is here with the grandchildren, they are here. We are also making a appeal again for those, because there are also issues in the family, welfare, that we need to attend to. As we promote the legacy of Comrade Pokes, we should also be sensitive to our welfare issues in the family. If you look at the back, we started being Lawrence Phokanoka Foundation. This is the first banner we produced, we printed. the board decided that we should now be Lawrence Phokanoka Foundation. We have also put the trademark, which is a donation from our businessman, Comrade Saul. There is also matters that we need to attend to the family and make sure that metaga imelo ke go fepa bana bale re godishe bana bale go fitlela ba eba banna ba malapa a re ka re ya go mmereko family le tla be le happy le phogolo o tla robala boroko. And thank you so much. I'm not sure whether I forgot certain things. Thanks so much. Yeah, students, when we're still taking music, Musa will help you. I'm sure the indication I got is that it's going to be in the hall. Yes. Yeah, in the hall. Let's spell the bag. Le khono bona gore le right ha re nya gore le create e be ke gopela gore pele re sepela nke re no kwa 2 songs ke nya go manage fruitless expenditure from our live band o re hlabe ka kotsha tse pedi tsa bogale and thanks so much and thank you. The 3rd edition is officially closed until we meet again in 2026. Thank you. 7.